Imagine an open highway stretching across a California desert at dusk, the horizon ablaze with pastel hues. A sleek silver Porsche 550 Spider glides over the asphalt, its low-slung chassis hugging the curves with predatory ease. The driver, slender build, sandy hair, and intense half-lidded eyes, leans forward, an inscrutable smile flickering across his face. If you saw him, you'd know him in a heartbeat. That's James Dean. And at this moment, he's living by the mantra he'd once casually tossed out in a bar, or maybe on a film set, something about living fast, dying young, and leaving behind a beautiful corpse. But no one that night believed he actually would. To understand how he got here, chasing the horizon in a car nicknamed Little Bastard, we have to rewind to a time before the rebellious swagger, before the big screen breakthroughs, and before the unshakable myth that would form in the wake of tragedy. James Byron Dean was born on February 8, 1931, in Marion, Indiana. Dust storms and wide farmland dominated the landscape, where the highlight might be a local dance or a traveling preacher's tent revival. Early pictures show a kid with a ready grin, warm eyes, and a slightly mischievous tilt to the head. But that softness was short-lived. His mother died when he was just 9. James never got over it. Though his father relocated to Los Angeles for work, James returned to Indiana, living with an aunt and uncle on a Quaker farm near Fairmount. Quiet farmland days, basketball games after school, a keen interest in the arts, strands of who he would become. By 1949, James Dean had turned 18 and craved more than small-town Indiana could give him. He was also restless, haunted perhaps by the loss of his mother, frustrated by the confines of farm chores, and itching for a taste of big city lights. So he made his way east, landing in New York, determined to study acting. It was here that events took a curious turn. James Dean crossed paths with Marlon Brando and Montgomery Clift, 2 established film stars who were rumored to be gay or bisexual. No one has ever pinned down the exact details of their interactions, but stories abound of smoky soirees in cramped Manhattan apartments, hushed exchanges among men living double lives in an era when same-sex attraction was taboo. Did James admire them from afar? Did they share more intimate connections? The gossip columns whispered of a young upstart actor ingratiating himself into a love triangle, though it was never definitively substantiated. Still, James Dean found himself swirling in circles where people spoke openly, if furtively, about identity and sex. Friends say this is when he learned to juggle secrets. If anything, that only enhanced his mystique, the sense that behind that charming grin lay entire private worlds he'd never share. By 1951, the lure of Hollywood called him westward, so he moved to Los Angeles, seeking better opportunities for his craft, but also as some suspect to stay close to Rogers Brackett, a director and producer nearly 20 years his senior. They lived together for a while, with Brackett providing both emotional and financial support. Rumors flew about the nature of their relationship. Brackett eventually confessed to having romantic feelings for the younger actor. For Dean, navigating these waters in buttoned-up 1950s, Hollywood demanded care, and yet the synergy between them propelled him forward. Brackett introduced him to casting directors, set him up for auditions, vouched for him at swanky industry parties. A handful of tabloids insinuated a scandal using coded language, but James seemed unperturbed, forging ahead with the same brash confidence that marked his every move. His big break arrived in 1954 when Elia Kazan cast him in East of Eden. But even before the film wrapped, James's name landed in gossip columns for a different reason. He was smitten with Pier Angeli, a stunning Italian actress who exuded an old-world Catholic grace. Their relationship was as intense as it was brief. Reportedly, he even proposed. The synergy was real. They were photographed strolling the studio lot hand in hand, their affection seeming genuine. But Pierre's mother despised him, seeing only a non-Catholic hooligan who smoked too much and rode a motorcycle. The final blow came when Pierre, buckling to maternal pressure, married crooner Vic Damone on November 24, 1954, in a lavish church ceremony. James was devastated. Legend says he roared up on his Triumph motorcycle during the wedding, parked outside the chapel, and simply stared. A photographer snapped a shot of him, teary-eyed, leaning on the bike, and that image soon circulated as proof that heartbreak can be as iconic as any glamorous romance. A rebellious young star snubbed at the altar. Hollywood feasted on the tale. James's pain, though, was very real. In interviews, he dodged questions, but close friends recall him wandering the Paramount backlot like a lost soul for days. Professionally, he was skyrocketing. His method approach, absorbed from classes with Lee Strasberg, brought a raw authenticity to East of Eden that left viewers stunned. Co-star Julie Harris sometimes complained about his eccentric habits, like mumbling to himself between takes or improvising bizarre bits of stage business. But Kazan was enthralled, praising Dean as a genius. Then came Rebel Without a Cause, 1955, directed by Nicholas Ray, which positioned James as the ultimate teenage anti-hero. Even if the behind-the-scenes stories were chaotic, James clashed with Sal Mineo, confused Natalie Wood, and tested Ray's patience with unpredictable mood swings. The final product soared. And James, sporting a red jacket and wounded stare, became the embodiment of restless youth. He was no longer just an up-and-coming actor. He was an icon for every kid who felt misunderstood by teachers or parents. The same year, James found himself in Marfa, Texas, filming Giant alongside Rock Hudson and Elizabeth Taylor. Tensions flared yet again. Rock Hudson, the polished matinee idol, dismissed Dean as a little bastard, while Elizabeth offered guarded admiration tinged with exasperation. Sometimes he'd vanish on location, skipping a scene call or showing up late, reeking of engine oil and dust after another escapade on his beloved Porsche. For a boy from Indiana who'd once idolized film stars from afar, James was now among them, both shaped by and shaping that golden Hollywood era. Yet in every whisper, you sensed a certain self-destructive edge. He was too intense, too reckless, too unconcerned with the rules. That recklessness wasn't limited to his acting style. From 1954 onward, James developed a serious taste for speed. He started with a Porsche 356 Speedster, dabbling in amateur races around Palm Springs. Despite repeated run-ins with the law, like the day Los Angeles police clocked him at 90 miles per hour, he only revved higher. He'd shrug off warnings from friends brandishing that famous line, "Live fast, die young, leave a good-looking corpse." When he upgraded to the iconic Porsche 550 Spider, a sleek, low-slung roadster he christened Little Bastard, people took it as a grim sign. Dennis Hopper, a pal from the Rebel set, once pleaded with him, "You're going to kill yourself in that thing," but James would laugh, insisting he was in control. But in truth, no one controls fate. On September 30th, 1955, James Dean was en route to a race in Salinas, accompanied by his mechanic Rolf Vutherick. The afternoon sun was dipping low as they sped along Route 466, now State Route 46. Newspaper accounts vary on the exact speed. Some say 85 miles per hour, others claim 55 miles per hour. Regardless, at about 5:45 p.m., a Ford Tudor driven by 23-year-old Donald Turnipseed cut across the intersection. James had no time to brake. The impact was devastating. The Porsche crumpled, throwing Wutherick from the passenger seat and pinning James behind the wheel. He suffered a broken neck, crushed chest, and massive internal injuries, dying either instantly or within minutes. It was a swift, brutal end to a life that had only just begun to shine in the spotlight. The iconic Little Bastard lay in pieces. Wutherick survived with severe injuries. Turnipseed was unharmed except for shock. Photographs show the shattered remains of the Porsche scattered across the tarmac, an emblem of shattered youth. Police determined James wasn't at fault. The smaller, low-profile Porsche might have been invisible in the glare. But none of that changed the reality. The golden boy was gone at 24. The official coroner's report came 2 days later noting severe trauma. No autopsy was done, perhaps from respect for the family or a desire to quell the media frenzy. Turnipseed faced no charges. The accident was ruled a tragic fluke. In a haunting postscript, Rolf Wutherick would later mention James's final words, "That guy's got to see us. He has to stop." They ring with an eerie sadness, capturing James's last flicker of faith that fate would yield. It didn't. That tragedy ricocheted across Hollywood like a thunderclap. On October 2nd, 1955, a small service was held near the crash site, but the main funeral took place on October 8th in Fairmount, Indiana. Over 3,000 mourners flooded into the tiny town, straining against police barriers just to glimpse the coffin containing the body of a star who still seemed unreal in his youth and beauty. The open casket decision shocked many. James's face bore the mark of violent trauma. Yet even in death, he looked somehow defiant, as if the scowl that had made him famous remained. They buried him in Park Cemetery, a simple headstone etched with James B. Dean, 1931 to 1955. Fans and curiosity seekers would make pilgrimages there for decades to come, often leaving cigarettes, small figurines of Porsches, or love letters. Each item whispered, "We wish you were still here." Within weeks of his passing, 2 major films hit theaters: Rebel Without a Cause on October 27, 1955, and Giant the following year. Overnight, James Dean transcended mere stardom. He became the first truly modern pop icon to die young and immortalize himself in the public psyche. Scores of fans who had never heard his name now rushed to see the films, hungry for a final glimpse of the rebellious aura. Rebel turned into a generational anthem. Giant showcased a range no one realized he had. In short order, the sense of myth was cemented. The public consumed his image on posters, T-shirts, and magazine tributes, while the studios grappled with how to market a star who was no longer alive. Rumors of a Misfits curse eventually extended to him too, even though the Misfits wouldn't materialize until 1961 for Marilyn Monroe and Clark Gable. A bizarre conflation of tragedies began swirling in Hollywood lore. Clark Gable died after filming it, Monroe overdosed, Monty Clift perished soon after, and now some insisted it had claimed James Dean retroactively, though he never worked on the film. In that sense, conspiracies and curses only magnified the mystique. Then there was the matter of his personal life, now that he was no longer around to conceal or evade. People in the industry, from editors to ex-lovers, fed scraps of information to tabloids, painting him as bisexual or gay or something in between. Some alleged that his relationship with Pierangeli was a publicity stunt to mask his true orientation. Others insisted it was the only genuine love affair he ever had, a swirl of half-truths and legend. The Rogers Brackett story also reemerged, with some close friends confirming that yes, James had lived with him, that they'd shared more than rent. None of it diminished the star's appeal. If anything, the forbidden aura of secrecy only made him more compelling. In an America on the brink of cultural shifts, James Dean became a lightning rod for all sorts of discussions about identity, sexuality, and rebellion. He was James Dean, a rebel, a lover, a speed demon, a poet of the silver screen. In the final run, that's all that needs to be said. The rest is noise. In the hush that follows, one can almost imagine him revving that Porsche in some celestial drag strip, hair ruffled by cosmic winds, ready for another race to the edge of oblivion. If there's an afterlife that accommodates free spirits, perhaps that's where he found solace. Or maybe his essence lingers in every red-jacketed teen who feels misunderstood, in every battered Porsche convertible cruising a desert highway, or in every hush of cinema-goers who see him glower on screen for the very first time and think, my God, he's alive. Because in the timeless realm of film, he is.